Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. 1923's Timeline Explained. Season 2 is really 1924. In 1923 Season 2, it's actually 1924. The series title was derived from the show's first chapter, with 1923 Season 1's story taking place in the title year. However, in 1923 Season 2, some time has passed since the Yellowstone prequel's first season. While it's not clear how much time, exactly, the unforgiving winter the Dutton family faces in 1923 Season 2 gives us a pretty good idea. The brutal weather has brought awful circumstances for Jacob, Helen Mirren, and Kara Dutton's Helen Mirren family, officially affecting Spencer Dutton, Brandon Sklinner, as he makes his way home on the train. Winter is our biggest hint, but a few clues indirectly speak to how much time has passed in 1923. The grim nature of the cold and wilderness has been a theme for 1923 Season 2, and we see that with Elizabeth Strafford's, Michelle Randolph, Wolfbite, and Alexander Dutton's, Julia Schlapfer. Predicament in 1923 Season 2, Episode 6 ending. While she experiences a more tepid climate, Tana Rainwater, Amina Neves, also faces unbearable circumstances. Understanding the complete timeline of 1923's Prohibition-era story explains just how long the Crow student has been on the run. To understand where 1923's characters landed in Season 2, it's essential to know when the story began. We can say with some certainty that 1923 Season 1 happened at the end of the titular year, sometime around late summer or early autumn in Montana. When 1923 begins, Elizabeth Strafford wears short-hemmed, short-sleeved summer dresses, indicating Montana is warm enough to go without an extra layer. The characters experience the spoils of summer, but just for a moment, since the weather cools off as the plot heats up. As 1923 Season 1 progresses, the temperature falls, and we see that reflected in the scenery and characters' behavior. By 1923 Season 1, Episode 4, War and the Turquoise Tide, people began to layer. While Kara Dutton doesn't yet sport a coat when she goes to Bozeman to take Jacob's place at the Livestock Association meeting, she wears a heavier, darker dress. Likewise, Elizabeth Strafford starts to wear sweaters as the season progresses. In 1923 Episode 4, Jack's wife wears a long, thick cardigan and boots, so we can assume summer is turning into fall. It's natural to assume that Season 1 of the prequel takes place in 1923. We also witness the dog days of summer turn to autumn. Therefore, 1923 seemingly takes place mid-year. Furthermore, in 1923 Season 2, Episode 6, The Mountain Teeth of Monsters, Spencer Dutton tells another traveler that Montana only has 3 seasons: July, August, and winter. Taking Spencer's word for it, 1923 had to start sometime in either July or August. However, by 1923 Season 1's finale, snow moves into Montana, covering the ground and dusting the mountains as Donald Whitfield, Timothy Dalton, arrives with daunting news. Following the first season, 1923 Season 2 opens with winter, though it isn't initially clear when. Elsa Dutton's narration for 1923 Season 2's premiere, titled The Killing Season, focuses extensively on the unforgiving nature of the season. At the end, Elsa says the following: "Winter is the killing season. When the hunters among us seek out the weak, the foolish, only the very strongest of nature's creatures survive it. Winter is the time of the wolf, the time of the lion, when all nature's failures become a meal. Then spring brings new life, and God tries again." However, we could assume that 1923 Season 2 still takes place in the title's year, later in the calendar, if it weren't for a couple of clues that the calendar year had started anew. Initially, the snow and blizzards could as easily indicate that it's December as January, but as some 1923 characters near the ranch, other supporting players begin to talk of the spring. This is most obvious in Spencer and Alex's train journeys. Supporting characters in their quests comment about the weather, further piecing together how much time has passed since 1923 Season 1. In 1923 Season 2, Episode 5, Only Gunshots to Guide Us, Alex is baffled that a snowdrift has stopped her train. As she speaks with a ticket teller at the train station in Chicago, who tells her a snowdrift has canceled her connecting train to Fargo, Alex remarks that it's spring. The teller informs the intrepid traveler that while it's spring in Florida, it is winter in the country's center until June. Therefore, while it isn't yet warm, spring approaches in 1923 Season 2. We can therefore assume that it's a new year, with the seasons entering a fresh cycle. Despite the change in year, Taylor Sheridan didn't change the name of his Yellowstone prequel. While the title year is technically incorrect after the year started over, it wouldn't have made sense to change the moniker, since Yellowstone viewers already recognize the series under the name 1923. While 1923 is technically in the show's past in Season 2, the title 1923 still stands to mark the period the Prohibition-era Dutton family existed in, indicating the year Jacob and Kara's story began. Ultimately, the brand recognition was more important to Sheridan than being just so about the date, which still gives viewers an idea of the period. Plus, 1923's title is more than an indicator of the time. After witnessing its valiant characters, the prequel's title is tied to the lion-hearted personalities who fill out its story just as much as the story's starting year. Still, realizing that it's 1924 gives viewers a more solid understanding of how much time has passed. Elizabeth and Alexandra are both expecting babies heading into 1923 Season 2's finale, and the timeline gives us a sense of when a new pregnancy happened to Jack and Elizabeth. After 1923 ends, we may not see the Dutton family's timeline resume until 1944. After 1923 Season 2, we probably won't see its remaining characters for decades. Taylor Sheridan previously said that there would only be 2 chapters of 1923, meaning the Season 2 finale is the last we will see of the 1920s Dutton actors. The Yellowstone screenwriter has also teased another prequel series titled 1944, which would pick up with the Dutton family 20 years later, much like 1923's story did after 1883. Regardless, there are Yellowstone sagas in the modern era to look forward to, like Case, Luke Grimes, and Beth's Kelly Riley. Continuations, should 1923 be the last of the Dutton prequels. Taylor Sheridan's 1923 took viewers on an epic journey through the early struggles of the Dutton family as they fought to preserve their Montana ranch against economic hardship, political upheaval, and the ever-expanding forces of modernity. As Yellowstone's second major prequel after 1883, the show masterfully painted a picture of a volatile era in American history. With the announcement of Season 2, however, one major detail stands out. 1923 is no longer set in 1923. The second season will actually take place in 1924, subtly reshaping the show's timeline and its broader implications for the Dutton family legacy. A year that changed everything. When 1923 first premiered, it immediately established a distinct tone, portraying a world still reeling from the aftermath of World War I and the impending doom of the Great Depression. The year 1923 was chosen carefully, marking a crucial transitional period for both the United States and the American West. Yet, by shifting the timeline to 1924 in Season 2, Sheridan is signaling that the Duttons are moving into an even more turbulent chapter of their history. One of the most significant events of 1924 was the passage of the Immigration Act, which severely restricted migration into the U.S., particularly from Southern and Eastern Europe. This would have had an indirect effect on Montana's labor force and economy, which relied on immigrants for ranching, mining, and other industries. For the Duttons, this could mean fewer workers available to help maintain their sprawling ranch, exacerbating the challenges already introduced in Season 1. The lingering impact of Season 1. The first season of 1923 ended on multiple cliffhangers, particularly concerning Jacob and Kara Dutton, Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Jacob, having barely survived an ambush orchestrated by sheep herder-turned-ranch baron Donald Whitfield, is left in a precarious state. Meanwhile, Kara, ever the formidable matriarch, is struggling to hold the family together while preparing Spencer, Brandon Sklinner, for his inevitable return home. Spencer's storyline, which took him across Africa and into war-torn Europe, mirrored the grand, sweeping narratives of classic adventure tales. His delayed homecoming will now take place in 1924, possibly aligning with a historical resurgence of ex-soldiers seeking stability and purpose after the war. His return to Montana may symbolize not only a personal reckoning, but also the broader shift in American identity during the mid-1920s. Why the time jump matters. Sheridan is known for his meticulous approach to historical storytelling, and the decision to push the timeline forward by a year is not arbitrary. By setting Season 2 in 1924, 1923 enters a year characterized by economic expansion, political conservatism, and cultural shifts that would soon define the Roaring Twenties. Prohibition was still in full effect, leading to an explosion of underground speakeasies and bootlegging operations. Given Montana's proximity to the Canadian border, smuggling alcohol could become an unforeseen complication or opportunity for the Duttons.